He chased her for months. Messages every day, compliments, relentless attention, the kind of pursuit that makes you feel genuinely chosen. She was 23 years old, 5'4", 125 pounds, living her life. He was 27 and determined. And when she finally said yes, when she trusted him enough to call him her boyfriend, that is when the real plan began. Because what looked like devotion from the outside was something else entirely. He did not fall in love with her. He selected her. And the moment he had her locked in, he started breaking her down one carefully placed comment at a time until she could not imagine surviving without his approval. The damage was so methodical, so patient, that she did not even recognize it for what it was until a single post blew the entire structure wide open in less than 24 hours. Let me take you back to where this started. She was doing just fine before him. 23, healthy, comfortable in her own skin, living life on her own terms. Nothing broken, nothing that needed fixing. He was 4 years older, 27, and from the moment he noticed her, he was all in. This was not a slow burn. He pursued her hard. Daily messages, consistent effort, the kind of deliberate attention that is genuinely difficult to resist. She gave him a chance. Who wouldn't? He seemed like a man who knew exactly what he wanted and was not afraid to go after it. For a while after that, things seemed normal. They dated. They settled into a routine. He was attentive, present, always checking in. But there is a version of attention that feels like love and a version that is actually surveillance. In the beginning, the difference is almost invisible. The first comments arrived early and small. A raised eyebrow at her meal choice, a casual remark about eating cleaner, nothing you could point to directly. The kind of thing you dismiss once, then find yourself thinking about at 2 in the morning, wondering if maybe he had a point. Then came the plan. He sat her down one day and presented it like a gift, a full workout program, a meal schedule, a complete roadmap to becoming, in his words, her best self. He framed it as love. He said he just wanted her to feel confident. He said this was what real care looked like. She is 5'4" and weighs 125 pounds. She eats normally. She functions normally. She does not need a program. But by the time he handed her that paper, he had already spent weeks quietly planting doubts, small comments that did not seem like much individually, but stacked up into something heavier. Now he was presenting the solution to a problem he had invented. She went along with it, partly to make him happy, partly because she was starting to wonder if maybe he had a point. Every single day after that, he checked in. Did you work out? Did you follow the plan? He pushed her toward a vegan diet. She had no interest in that. She liked her food. She liked her life. But his disapproval had a physical weight to it, constant, low-level pressure, wearing her down one day at a time. Little did she realize he had no intention of ever being satisfied. Then came the night she ordered baked ziti. This one detail, this completely ordinary detail, tells you everything you need to know about where this relationship had gone. A 23-year-old woman ordering pasta for dinner from the man who was supposed to love her. And the look he gave her said it before his mouth did. He turned, looked at her food, and said, "How could you order that? We both agreed you need to lose weight." We both agreed. As if her body were a shared project she had signed on to manage. As if she had entered the relationship under the explicit understanding that he would audit every meal she consumed going forward. She had tried to leave him before this, not once. 3 times she had tried to end it. And every single time, he had the same response ready. "You don't understand where I'm coming from. I'm just trying to help you. You have low self-esteem and I'm working on fixing that." He reframed every red flag as a form of devotion. He reframed his cruelty as concern. Think about how exhausting that is to live inside. Think about how hard it is to leave someone who has a perfectly rehearsed counterargument for every piece of evidence you bring. But the photos were something else entirely. He started sending her pictures of other women, complete strangers pulled from the internet, and telling her, "This is what you look like." He described these women as having post-pregnancy bodies, as not being attractive. And then he would follow those up with a different set of photos and say, "This is what you could look like if you just followed the plan, if you just trusted him." She pushed back. She told him she thought she was thinner than the women he kept putting in front of her. Do you know what he said? He told her he had better eyes than her. He looked her in the face and told her directly, plainly, that she could not trust her own perception of her own body, that his view of her was more accurate than hers. That was not a careless comment. That was deliberate. He wasn't just insulting her. He was dismantling her ability to trust herself, replacing her own self-image with a version only he controlled. And then there was the number he kept returning to, 15 pounds. 15 pounds from 125, and she would finally, in his estimation, be perfect. 15 pounds away from worthy. That was the deal he kept on the table. Here is where we need to stop and look at what was actually happening to her on the inside. Because the facts of the relationship are one thing, but what he was doing to her mind is something else. She had stopped wearing the clothes she liked. She was covering herself in baggy, shapeless outfits because she was ashamed of her body. Ashamed of a body that, by any objective measure, was completely healthy. She said it herself, plainly and without embellishment. I used to like my body. Past tense, he ended that. She wanted to leave. She had tried to leave. But every time she got close to the edge, the same fear yanked her back. No one else will want me. Anyone who dates me after this would be settling for less. And so she stayed, wanting the approval of the man who had methodically stripped away everything she once felt good about. That is not weakness. That is not a failure of character. That is how this kind of damage is specifically designed to work. You do not just destroy someone's confidence. You make yourself the only possible source of repair. He did not just make her feel bad about herself. He made himself the only mirror she trusted. And every time she looked into it, the reflection was never going to be enough. Desperate and running out of places to put it, she did something that would change the entire trajectory. She wrote the whole thing down and posted it online. The workout plan he built for her, the food monitoring, the photos he sent comparing her to strangers, the daily check-ins, the 15-pound target, all of it laid out in plain language. And then she asked the questions that tell you exactly how thoroughly he had done his work on her. Why is he dating me if I'm so unattractive? How do I get my self-esteem back? Why pursue me at all? She still did not fully understand what had been done to her. She thought she was asking for advice on how to fix a relationship between two imperfect people. She thought there might be a version of this that worked out. What she got back was overwhelming. Thousands of responses, people from every direction naming what she had described, some gently and some with no patience for softening it. The message was consistent. This is not a communication problem. This is something being deliberately done to you. But one comment cut through all of the noise. A stranger quoted her own words back at her, the line she had written, "I'm nervous no one else will want me." And underneath it, in all caps, "And that is exactly why he does IT. Remember when I said the manipulation was methodical? Well, now she knew the method." Sit with that for a second, because it is worth understanding completely. Every single comment about her weight, every photo comparison, every daily check-in. Every time he reframed her attempts to leave as evidence that she was too sensitive, too irrational, too broken to see what was good for her, none of it was careless. None of it was the result of poor communication or a man who simply did not know how to love properly. It was a system, a deliberate, patient sequence with one specific goal. You do not begin by tearing someone down. That would push them away. You begin by pursuing them relentlessly, visibly, until they feel genuinely chosen. You build the trust. You become the most important presence in their life. And then, slowly and carefully, you start replacing their self-image with one that only you can maintain. You make them doubt their own eyes. You make them need your version of them to know who they are. You make leaving feel more dangerous than staying. He did not want to improve her. He wanted to own her. And for close to a year, it was working exactly as intended. Until it wasn't. Because now she saw the architecture of it, laid out clearly by strangers who had seen it before and recognized every piece immediately. And when you see something like that clearly, really clearly, for the first time, you cannot unsee it. Clarity is irreversible. She did not wait until morning. She did not draft a careful speech. She did not schedule a face-to-face conversation where he could deploy every tactic he had spent a year developing. She picked up her phone. She typed. And what she wrote, what this 23-year-old woman, whose sense of self had been methodically taken apart over the course of a full year, managed to put into words, deserves to be heard exactly as she wrote it. The way you talk to me and treat me is not how you talk to anyone, let alone your girlfriend, who you are supposed to love. I hope you change for the next girl you date, because you are a miserable person and no one deserves your abuse. She hit send. She blocked his number. That was it. No drawn-out phone call he could use to spin her around. No tearful last conversation he could leverage into a reason to stay. No face-to-face where he could access every button he had spent months installing. She said exactly what needed to be said, with more clarity and dignity than he had extended to her in the entirety of their relationship. And she was done. One text message. One block. After a year of being told she was not enough, she walked out in a paragraph and did not look back once. He did not take it quietly. Within hours of receiving that message, he was calling her house phone, calling her parents' cell phones, and when he eventually made contact, he was not heartbroken, he was furious. Entitled. He told her she was the one being abusive. He said she had broken up with him 3 times and was the one playing games. He claimed he had no friends except her, that she was abandoning him, that she was simply too sensitive to handle someone who told her the truth. Notice what is completely absent from that list: any acknowledgement of what he had done to her, any apology, any moment of self-reflection, not a word of it. Just accusation, just demands, just more of the same playbook, running louder now because the usual approach was no longer working. She had been warned by people who recognized the pattern: do not open the door if he shows up. Do not engage. Once he is in, he knows exactly which buttons to push because he installed them. She had already lived that. She was not doing it again. She sat with her phone buzzing and her parents receiving calls they should never have had to field, and she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She wrote it herself at the end of all of it: I'm not even upset about the breakup. Here is the part of this story I keep coming back to. At the very end of everything, after the post, the responses, the text, the blocked number, the calls to her parents, she wrote this: I'm not even upset about the breakup. I just have that feeling of worthlessness, but I had that even with him. That line is the entire story in one sentence. The thing he convinced her she needed him to fix, he was the one causing it every single day. The worthlessness she was terrified to face alone had been living inside her throughout the entire relationship. It was already there in every meal he judged, every photo he sent, every morning check-in where she had to prove she was still trying hard enough to earn his approval. She was already living the worst-case scenario. She just had not seen it that way yet. Within 24 hours of writing her post, she had named what was happening to her, understood it clearly, ended it with her dignity intact, and started the long road back to herself. Cold karma does not always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like a 23-year-old woman at a keyboard, finally seeing the truth and making one clean, permanent decision. The most devastating thing she could have done to a man who spent a year trying to make her feel small was simply leave. If this story hit home for you, drop a like and subscribe. Cold karma gets served here every single day.